about AWS, what you can do with AWS when you explain the project within AWS, right? So, what if an entire region has a problem? Of course, within a region, you can do many things. We can have one load balancer, which can detect which machine is down, then stop sending traffic to that machine, then send traffic to the remaining machines. And the machines are spread across multiple availability zones. What it means is, if really there is a problem with AWS in one of their data center, it is not going to affect all your machines. It's going to affect only few machines because your backend machines are spread across multiple availability zones. And also, it is not rare that an entire region can think about some earthquake or some natural disaster came into that area, and that entire region is now down. Still, you want your software to be working, right? I mean, you really do not want your software to stop working because of the entire region is down. In such situations, what we can do, in a different region, in a different country, in a different place, you set up your infrastructure. Maybe you don't need to set up everything. In Mumbai, you have load balancers, you have the backend machines and everything. All these things you have. In Ireland also, you would set up a EC2 machine and also one database also. Maybe you don't need all the load balancers to be set up here. That is going to be very costly. Maybe you would keep one or two machine with a load balancer, and these machines are connected to the database. And how does this database get update from the production database? Assume this is your production database, and you would configure the machine in the other region as a slave machine. In that case, whatever happens in Mumbai, right, this is your infrastructure, and this database are being backed up in a real time by configuring a slave machine in a different region. What it means is, in case of there is a disaster, your you still have the database in the other region. Okay, so you can also configure your Route 53. Assume you are using Route 53 as your DNS, and your web application by default it points to Mumbai load balancer always. That's how the Route 53 you configured it. You actually added to a record, right? To a record you have added by enabling some health check settings, and you would always keep this load balancer as down. Maybe you would not open port 80 in this load balancer just to make sure that the Route 53 does not send traffic to this load balancer. But if this entire region ever fails and the health check starts to fail for this region, then the Route 53 will automatically send the traffic back to this load balancer once you enabled it. Or you can even configure within the Route 53 also, you have the rules like you can configure the rules such as uh, through geolocation you send all places usage into this region with the failover option. So what it means is, by default, even though this machine is up based on the people's location, they all would be redirected to the Mumbai region. But if this Mumbai region fails and this one is healthy, then what your Route 53 will automatically do is it would start pointing your usage across the globe to this load balancer which is in Ireland. So basically, your website would keep on working no matter if one entire region is also down. This is also a practice which different companies follows to make sure that they have disaster recovery in case an entire region fails. Maybe they will not have this. Here you may have total 100 machines, number of database machines you have, number of Apache machines, number of Tomcat machines, a number of different load balancers you have in this region. But in this region you will not maybe keep all the machine, but probably what you would do is you would keep one or two machine with auto scaling. What it means is, if there is a problem with this data center, automatically your people would start pointing to this region. And also, as the traffic grows, the infrastructure would gradually grow because you configured the auto scaling in this region also. So this is one practice many companies follows today. Okay, so that's pretty much I wanted to discuss about cloud and your project. And starting from today, we would be focusing on DevOps. We are moving into DevOps. And the first topic which I want to cover in DevOps is configuration management using Chef, Puppet, or Ansible in infrastructure. Basically, my earlier plan was to start with the continuous integration, but since we are already on the right path, we have been learning how to set up the infrastructure. Chef, we will first cover using Chef. You would learn how you can set up a infrastructure in a completely automated way rather than you setting up this WordPress and installing Apache and setting up the load balancers and then creating the databases or everything. You would configure some tool to do the job for you. So the infrastructure creation is no more manual. It is done through a config management tool. Chef is what that we are going to cover in depth in our training. And we also have Ansible and Puppet, but into Ansible and Puppet we would not be going into depth. Basically we would be comparing how a same project that you do using Chef you can do using Ansible also, is what we would be focusing on. Ansible and Puppet, we would not be covering in depth on Ansible and Puppet. It would be Chef that we would be covering in a real-time project basis. Like a project basis, we are covering Chef. Okay. So let's talk about Chef. First, let's talk about what is config management. So think about any infrastructure. Think about any infrastructure that contains a number of machines. It will contain a number of Apache machines serving the PHP applications. It can contain number of Tomcat machines serving the Java application. It can contain a lot of database machines, lot of monitoring surveys, lot of different queue systems and caching machines. There can be a lot of different software components that would be spread across your entire infrastructure. The infrastructure, the size of the infrastructure completely depends on how many software component that you have, and also what is the usage of your software. If think about Google, there are billions of people browsing Google and using the Google search engine. What it means is the infrastructure should be big enough to handle that entire traffic coming to all the world, coming from all the world. So depending on, but that would not be the case with Flipkart. Flipkart mainly has only Indian customers, but still the traffic is very high. They still need thousands of machines to handle the entire traffic coming from the Indian customers of them. Or think about a startup. Think about any startup in Mobi or any company who provides some ad solutions. So the traffic that they are going to manage is comparatively less compared to Flipkart or the big companies. And even think about a small startup which have they have hardly thousands or 2,000 people browsing for their website at the same time. So in such cases, maybe what you need is 4 or 5 machine, maybe one WordPress machine, one Apache machine, one Tomcat machine, one database machine, and maybe one load balancer optionally. That's all you need if you have a very small. So the size of the infrastructure can completely depend on how your software application is split across the machine, and also how much traffic that you are going to receive in your infrastructure. So think about this. You have maybe it's a very small company and you have one Apache machine and Tomcat is running behind the Apache machine. and Apache act like a proxy, and it is a very sample application that you're providing to your user. Maybe some email application using which people can log into your website, and they have the option to send out emergency emails, text messages, or even the voice calls they can make using your application. That's what you do in your web application. And it is just a startup, and maybe all you need is for serving that application that takes care of this emailing and stuff. Probably assume it's a Java application which is serving through Tomcat, and also assume there's a front page website that you have which is running WordPress. And WordPress is used as the front page of many websites in the world. The TechCrunch, I think you may already aware of this TechCrunch. There are many websites in the world, all right, which uses WordPress as their front page, right? The TechCrunch is basically a blog type of website, which actually is completely running in WordPress. There are many sites, websites that use WordPress. Search in Google, you will get TechCrunch, The New Yorker, BBC America. There are many websites, Sony Music, MTV News. There are many websites which users. Most of these news websites users are running on WordPress. Right? Yeah, just for your information. So what I'm trying to say is, if that's all your application contains, maybe it has only few machines. It has one Apache machine which is running WordPress. It has one Tomcat machine which is running your Java application. Then there is a database machine that hosts your databases. The WordPress connect to the database, and there is a database machine. Maybe there are two database machine, each machine hosting one database each. So this machine would contain the WordPress database, or sometimes a single machine would host multiple databases. That's also an option. Your WordPress would connect to this database, and your Java application will connect to the other database. So you need two database machines, one Tomcat machine and one Apache machine. Then optionally you would need some other machines also, maybe for doing some kind of caching and stuff. Then probably you need a load balancer if you are planning to run multiple machines. So assume this is a very small infrastructure that does not get too much traffic, but this is a requirement that you need these many machines because you do not want your both database to be running on a same machine. Instead of that, you want to split your database machine into two. One database machine would serve the Java application, and the other would serve the PHP application. And this is how your infrastructure is configured. Maybe hardly there are 5 or 6 machines, and it is pretty easy. The WordPress machine now, this is the database machine to connect to. You can just easily remember that, right? What wp config.php settings that you want to have. Maybe you can keep the track of it in a notepad. You would create some file with the documentation, and in that documentation you would save which machine serve what purpose. For example, you would mention this is the database machine that contains the WordPress database, and you would mention this is the other machine, DB002. You call it some name for the machine, DB002. That is the machine which is hosting the Tomcat application database, and this is the machine which is hosting, maybe you call it app001. This is the machine that contains the Tomcat and Java application, and this is one machine which has Apache and WordPress, all these things. So there are different machines, and you know what software need to be installed. It is pretty easy to remember because all you have is only 5 machine, and it is pretty easy to remember what software component should be installed in each machine, what are the different modules and libraries to be present in each machines, and uh, which configuration this machine would use if it want to connect to the database, what are the database credential which your WordPress machine should use, and what are the database credential which your Tomcat machine should use if it want to connect to the database. All these things, it is pretty much easy to remember. Maybe you are one person and you can easily remember there are only 5 machines, you can remember that. But the situation will change when your application start to grow. Start to grow would mean start to get more traffic and more usage into the application. Then your infrastructure also should need to grow accordingly. Right now there are only 2000 or 3000 people browsing for your website. Then one machine is going to be sufficient. one WordPress machine and one Tomcat machines are going to be sufficient, and two database machines are going to be sufficient. But that is not the case when the traffic is growing. When the traffic become more and more, you need more machine to be added into your infrastructure. Maybe some of the machine need to be attached to a load balancer, some of the machine may not need to be attached to the load balancer, but still they do some job. Even though they are not connected to the load balancer, they still do some job. Maybe saving some temporary files and serving the files to the application server on requirement. There are different, assume there are different types of machine in each infrastructure that serve different purpose. So when this infrastructure start to grow, things would start to become complex. Maybe up to 10 machines, you can remember how many machine you have, what software component should be installed in that machine, and what are the different configuration you want to use, which is your database machine, which is your WordPress machine, which is the application server. Maybe up to 10 it is still okay to handle. When it become more and more, it would become tough to handle, and you cannot really remember, a human cannot really remember all these software component that need to be set up in each machine. It's kind of impossible. And think about infrastructure that contains 50 or 1000 or thousands of machine in it. It is not possible that a human can remember how this infrastructure should look like. So in such situations, what you do is you would rely on some config management tool. Inside that tool, you will write down the rules, how many machine that you have, which of them are Apache machines, which of them should be serving as Tomcat machine, and what are the different software to be installed in Apache machines, what are the different software to be installed in the Tomcat machine, and how the WordPress should be deployed in these Apache machines, how Tomcat should be deployed into the Java application should be deployed into the Tomcat machine, how the database which database services should be running on all the database machines. All these things you would write down. However your infrastructure need to look like, you would write that down as a law, as a rule inside some single place. It's a, assume this is your config management server, and inside this config management tool you are writing about your infrastructure. You are writing some code, assume you are writing a code about your infrastructure. My infrastructure contains 100 Apache machines, 200 Tomcat machines, 500 database machines. Like that, you write down the rules inside this config management tool. Then if it is a Apache machine, what are the different software it need to run? Maybe it need to run Apache. Apache 2 should be installed in those machines. Apache service should be running in those machines. Then you should have the necessary file copied into RWW folder. Then you would create, then WordPress should be installed in the machines. You should already download the WordPress files into RWW folder. Then this WordPress need to connect to a database, and what are the credentials of the database to which the WordPress want to connect to. All these things you would write inside this config management tool. And similarly for Tomcat, you will write down which Tomcat version and Tomcat should be installed, which version should be installed, it should be started, right? There are number of rules that you are going to write down about the Tomcat also. And what you would do is you would add the individual machine in your infrastructure into this role. Maybe you would create one role called Apache and the role called Tomcat, then add all your 200 machines into that particular role. Then whatever law that you had written, whatever rule that you had written inside this config management tool is going to be applied on each and every machine running Tomcat in your infrastructure. So once you did that, what this config management tool would do is it would do your job. Basically, all you need to do is tell your config management tool how you want your infrastructure to look like, and this config management tool will make sure that your infrastructure is looking like whatever rule that you had written. So this is a web server machine. Then you already had written rules like Apache should be installed, WordPress should be kept inside HTML folder, Apache service should be started, whatever rules that you had written. Over here, is going to be applied on this machine. Similarly, on all the machine, whatever machine that you have inside your infrastructure, you are going to add all these machine into this config management tool into different roles. And for each role, you are going to write the rules, and whatever rules that you had written is going to be applied individually on all the machines. Got it? So that's how it is. That's how it works. The config management tools. There are many config management tool out there today. There are many of them. The most popular ones are Chef, Puppet, and Ansible. These are very commonly used. There are other tools also, Salt, many tools out there. So today we will start with Chef. So first we will discuss about how the Chef infrastructure look like, the architecture, how Chef is architectured. Then we will move on to right the actual topics.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Yes, Mosammal. If you don't mind, use the chat box. That would be pretty easier. Unless, yeah, unless the question
May I ask?
cannot wait. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So you are explaining right now config management infrastructure, how we interfacing the config management infrastructure through AWS and WordPress
Not
machine. Am I
AWS.
right?
Actually, there is no relation between config management and AWS. Even though our lab is completely AWS, uh, everyone make a note.
Okay.
Chef is a completely different tool, right? That can manage an infrastructure, whether the infrastructure is in AWS or if it is your own dedicated machine or your own data centers that you have. Chef or Puppet or Ansible, these are generic tools, DevOps tools that can take care of conflict management. Doesn't matter what infrastructure you are in. It doesn't mandatorily need to be AWS, even though in our case we would be focusing much on AWS. But the same concept that we are
Chef.
going to discuss are going to work in any kind of infrastructure.
So the config management, sorry, config management, we are interface means we are interfacing the config management infrastructure through WordPress database and another uh, machines. Am I right?
Yeah, in our examples, yes, these are the things which we are going to deal with in our
Yes.
practical. Yes,
And types of config managements are Chef, Puppet, and Ansible, right?
Ansible. Yeah,
Ansible. Okay,
these are
okay.
different
I
tool.
didn't get.
These are different tool
I,
that
I didn't
take
get
care
it.
of conflict
Yes.
management.
Thank you, sir, and
Yeah.
thank you so much.
In AWS, we have option to create machine in different region. For those who are setting up machine physically, not using AWS, what they do? Yeah. So in that case, they need to choose, right? I mean, if you are in AWS, you have the flexibility to create machines in different regions. AWS provide that also as a service. If you want to create your infrastructure in Ireland, you want to create the infrastructure in Mumbai, you want to create it San Francisco, you have the flexibility if you are in AWS. The people who are not using AWS and who are managing the configuration themselves, the infrastructure themselves, they need to have maybe the best option would be assume you have your own data center in Mumbai or in Delhi. You have a physical building where you have set up your own infrastructure which is serving your software application. This is not AWS. There are companies who does that. They don't use any cloud computing. They would sometimes set up their own cloud. they would set up their own building, or sometimes they would rent a building from a data center and set up their own infrastructure over there. And then this would be the infrastructure would be which would be serving the traffic to them. In that situation also, they can still use AWS for disaster recovery. The same application that they deployed in their own infrastructure, they can deploy that also in a different region in AWS. That is also an option. So this is a very low cost environment that you are setting up inside AWS, that would be kept as a backup in case if this building has a problem or the internet connection fails in this building. There is really a big problem inside this building. Your entire infrastructure gets down. You can keep a backup in any region in AWS, then use as a disaster recovery solution in case of disaster here. Just point your DNS to the AWS load balancer or whatever. That is also something you can do. Because it is not practical that you can create your own physical building in all the countries. That it's kind of not just practical, it's going to be very costly, right? It's going to be very costly. If you, maybe in India you can set it up. You are in India, you can set it up, you can get a building and set it up. If you have to set up your own physical building in a different country, and then you have to set up the complete, buy all the things and set up a complete infrastructure, and then have a number of people managing this, that can be difficult. So in such situations, what you can really do is just have a solution in using AWS, which would be always kept as a backup. It would be used whenever there is a situation. So this is also people do, many people does this. So I was answering the question from Tushar. Right? It's I was answering the question about AWS. If you are using your own data center instead of AWS, how you would make sure that you have the disaster recovery plan. Yeah, in that case, just use AWS only as a disaster recovery tool. In case something goes wrong, you point your usage to a running infrastructure in AWS. The same application that you deploy in the normal physical environment, yes, you can deploy that into AWS also.
So like before AWS, what people used to do?
People used to do, people used to have, you know, in case in HP, what they were doing is they had data centers throughout the world, their own physical data centers they have in India. They have within India, they have one in Madras, they have one in Bangalore. Then outside India, they have different places, different data centers. All are configured in such a way that if some place has a problem, the other place will take care automatically. Doing some kind of failover, the application would. So people used to have, but those who are capable to do, of course, those, I mean, if you are making $1,000 revenue per month, and if you cannot spend $2,000 on your infrastructure, so it completely depends on the value of your infrastructure and revenue that the infrastructure generate. So there is, as long as you have money, and right, it is possible. Everything is possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. So chef. So first I will talk about how the chef is architected. Right. How do you write the configuration inside chef, and how can chef manage your configurations? How can we integrate on-premise service and cloud service for failover and high availability? That is also possible. you can use Route 53, right? Basically, for failover, you can use Route 53. You use Route 53 as your DNS and point your website to the on-premise data centers. If that fails, then you can configure your Route 53 to fail over to the second error code. Can we have both at a time? Yes, we can have both at a time. Some request would go into the on-premise data center, some premise can go into the AWS data center. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so now we are into Chef. So first I will tell you how the architecture of Chef would look like, how the configuration, how you write the configuration and everything. So everything in Chef are about the rule that you are writing inside the Chef. Examples of the rule would be Apache must be installed is a rule. Apache service should be running is another rule. Tomcat should be installed is another rule. Tomcat should be started is another rule. This particular file should be present inside var www.html folder is another rule. So what all things needs to be done inside your infrastructure across multiple machines. Your infrastructure can contain lots of machines, right? Maybe up to hundreds or thousands of machines your infrastructure can contain. And it's all about very small rules and organizing these rules, how these are going to be applied on these machines. That's what config management is all about. You are writing rules. Maybe some of these machines should have Apache installed, some of these machines should have Tomcat installed, some of these machines should have these many WordPress files kept inside var www.html folder. Some of these machines should have MySQL installed. Some of these machines should have these many databases created inside the MySQL. And right, so some of these machines should have PHP installed. So there would be lot of rule that you want to write. And Chef is all about distributing these rule across your entire infrastructure. Whichever machine need to apply what rule, you orchestrate everything in a single place. That's what Chef is all about. So the tiniest part in Chef is called a resource or a rule. It's called resource. Resource is the right term that you use in Chef. This is nothing but the tiniest rule. Example could be Apache should be installed, Tomcat should be installed, or this particular file should be present inside var www.html folder. The wp-config.php file should be updated with the exact database name, like that. There are different rule, individual rule that you write inside Chef. They're the smallest rule, very smallest rule. A package should be installed, service should be started, like that. That's what a resource is. And sometimes you would combine a set of resources together. The reason could be, let's say you want to set up Apache. When you can say the Apache setup is complete, first you need to install Apache, then you need to start the Apache service, then you need to copy some sample file into the var www.html folder and test it. That's when you can say the Apache is installed successfully. Then another task would be set up the WordPress. For that, what all things you want to do? You want to download WordPress and copy the WordPress files into var www.html folder. And then you want to WP config file should be modified with the correct database settings. Then you want PHP installed. You want lib apache to mod PHP, the PHP module for Apache installed. Then you want PHP MySQL, the MySQL module on PHP need to be installed. So there are set of things that you want to do if you want to set up WordPress. So like that, on a task basis, not mandatory, but typically on a task basis, you would combine a number of resources together to perform a particular task. Maybe set up Apache or set up WordPress or set up Tomcat. So like that, each of these tasks can actually contain multiple resources. So these kind of things that combines multiple resources, they are called recipes. Recipes in Chef. So a recipe is nothing but a combination of one or more resources. Probably those resources together would do a task, not mandatorily, right? But generally. Okay, so basically, it is the recipes that you are going to apply inside your machines. You have a number of machines inside your infrastructure, maybe hundreds of them, maybe thousands of them. On all these machines, you are actually going to apply these recipes based on what the machine is supposed to look like. Maybe this is a Apache machine, so it need to be installed with Apache. This is a Apache machine that also should have WordPress, and this is a Tomcat machine which should be deployed with Java applications. So there are different machine in your infrastructure. So each machine would take different recipes. Okay, so is recipe same as a task? Basically, recipe may not be a task. It's up to you. It is nothing but a combination of resources. That's it. And it is the recipes that are going to be applied on the machines. So generally, a recipe is a task, but it is not a rule or anything. It's up to you how you want to combine the resources together and how you want to apply these tasks or recipes on the machines. It's up to you to decide. So that's what a recipe. So in a typical chef server, you would find a lot of recipes because the recipes are the ones which are going to be applied in your entire infrastructure. A typical chef server would contain a lot of recipes. And in order to orchestrate it, actually, right, a lot of recipes means a lot of complexity. You split the recipes, you orchestrate your chef into small component or small module called cookbooks. A cookbook can contain multiple recipes, and there can be multiple cookbooks inside a chef server, basically, right? In order to reduce the complexity, how the recipes should be organized. The chef is configured in such a way that it is split into different cookbook. Maybe one cookbook is called Apache, another cookbook is data MySQL, another cookbook. So whatever task that you want to come under MySQL, you would create them inside the MySQL cookbook. Whatever task regarding Apache, so in case of Apache, setting up Apache is one thing, adding the new websites is another thing, right? Then enabling some Apache modules is another thing. So there are different tasks that you want to do within, right, within Apache. So what you do is you create a cookbook called Apache, and inside that cookbook you will have multiple recipes, and it is not just the recipe. A cookbook will have a lot of other things also a cookbook can have, that we are going to talk about. So basically, cookbooks are nothing but you can consider them as the modules in Chef. A single Chef server is classified into different cookbook where these recipes are spread across. It is more like a organization, how you organize your chef, that contains lots of recipes. They are organized into different cookbooks. We will talk about the cookbook in detail when we start the practicals. Okay, fine. So you have lots of recipes, and all your machine over here may need to run one or more recipes of it. Assume this is the WordPress machine. So in this WordPress machine, you want multiple recipes to be running. One recipe is setting up Apache. That would include the resources install Apache, start Apache, and copy the test file into www.html. The second recipe that you want to run is WordPress setup. That would contain the rules like copy the WordPress files into www.html, modifying the wp-config.php. So like that, a single machine may or may not have one or more recipes to be running in it. So what you need is a run list. You create a run list for each and every node in your infrastructure containing a list of recipes. So for this node, you would define a run list saying that it need to run the recipe Apache setup Apache. For this node, it should run two recipes, setup Apache, then setup WordPress. So basically, you create a run list for each machine, defining what are the recipes the machines are going to run. That's what a run list is. Either the run list can be individually attached to each and every machine, or what you can do is you can split your entire infrastructure into different roles. So the roles are nothing. There's a role called web server. All the machines that are running Apache, that they will come under the role web server. All machines that run Tomcat would come under the role app server. So like that, you create different roles. And the machine you would, this is a machine that need to run Apache, you would add the machine into the web server role. This is a machine that need to run database, you would add the machine into the database also. Multiple machines would be added in, would be spread across multiple roles. The reason you are creating the roles is, again, you want to simplify things. You have 100 machine running Apache, then you don't want to create individual run list for all 100 machines. Instead, what you can do is you can create a role called Apache server or web server. Then you create a run list for that web server, then add all your 100 machine into that role. Then automatically every machine part of that role will run that particular run list. It's a better option. If you have thousands of machine in your infrastructure, what you would do is maybe you have 500 database machines. So you would create a role called database server, add all your 500 machine into that particular role, then you create the run list for the role rather than creating run list for all 500 individual machines. It's a better option, right? So that's why the role exists in Chef. Basically, you are splitting your machines in the infrastructure based on their roles, and then you can have environment in Chef, which I will talk about. So, yeah. So these are the definition that you need to understand, and this is what Chef is all about. Like some 70% of Chef is all about these definitions. Okay, so we will can you explain again run list? Yeah, I'll explain about run list again. The run list is nothing but the list of recipes which is either attached individually to a machine or it is attached to a role. Run list is nothing but whatever task, whatever recipes which individual machine need to run. So if you attach a run list to a particular machine, then whatever task that you defined, whatever recipes that you defined in the run list would run only on that machine. In fact, if you attach the run list to a role, then whatever recipes that you define inside the run list will apply on all the machines part of the role. So run list is nothing but it contains list of recipes. Run list is nothing but list of recipes. Resource is nothing but list, recipe is nothing but list of resources. Run list is nothing but a list of recipes. The run list can be is what you would attach to your machines. Either you directly attach it to the machine or you would attach them to a role to which the machines are part of. Okay, it's clear, right? Any doubts so far? This is how the chef architecture would look like. Okay, so yeah, take a short break and we will continue in 5 minutes. So I will tell you, and you are pretty clear with the key pair concept, right? Assume there are two Linux machine. This is one Linux machine. This is another Linux machine. Forget about AWS. This is one Linux machine. This is another Linux machine. From this machine, you want to log into this machine. What you would do? First, you generate a private public key pair. This public key you will copy into this machine. Then using the private key, you can access to this machine. Right? I hope you still remember this key pair concept that we have been discussing. Okay, so chef. So I told you it's all about a set of configuration that you want to write inside chef, right? You want to write a set of configuration inside your chef. That's what you are going to do. So when you do that, you basically write them down inside your laptop, or maybe you can call it a workstation computer. Inside a workstation, generally this is nothing but your laptop. Inside the laptop, you would write down the configurations, how many machine you have, which of them are web server, which of them are Tomcat machines, what are the different cookbook that you have, what are the different recipes that you have created, what are the individual run list for individual nodes. All these things you write them down inside plain text files, right? The configuration is written in plain text files. It is a Ruby based program that you need to write, but you don't really need to learn the Ruby programming. That is not mandatory. We will come into that, right? So you write down the configuration inside your laptop, and later you would upload all this configuration into a single machine, which you call it the chef server. So you have a chef server which would save all the configurations, but whenever you want to make some configuration, you don't need to log in directly into the chef server. Instead, what you do is you log into a workstation machine. Generally it is nothing but your laptop. You make the changes in the configuration. Once you made the change in the configuration, you would then upload the changes into the chef server. That's what you do. There can be multiple DevOps engineers working in different configuration. They all make the config changes, and whenever they make the changes, all they do is they will upload their changes into the chef server. That's how you change configuration. Whenever you want to make some changes in the configuration, this is how you do it. And assume there is a infrastructure that you want to manage. There can be lots of machine, maybe hundreds of machine are part of this infrastructure. All these machines serving different roles, and all individual machines should be added to the chef server. That's important. What you do is the process is called bootstrapping. Through a process called bootstrapping, the workstation will connect with all individual nodes, and it will install some chef client package on these machines. Then the chef server would start to handle those machines, whichever machine that were added to chef. So it is important that before you could have your machine to be handled by chef, first you need to bootstrap the machine. All individual node which you want your chef to manage. All the machines should be bootstrapped. So we will talk about bootstrapping later. Basically, just assume bootstrap is a process of adding the machine into your chef server, whichever machine your chef server want to manage. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I need two machines. What I would do is inside my MacBook, I don't want to do anything. What I would do is I would create another EC2 machine which will act like my workstation, and I will create second EC2 machine which would be acting like a chef server. Then I would create the node machine and add the machine to the chef server. That's what I'm going to do in our training. Right? That's the plan. So first, forget about this part, the nodes. I need two machine, two EC2 machine for now. It can be EC2 machine or it can be your on-premise machine. It can be a machine which you purchased from a different provider. Doesn't matter. Always remember, has nothing to do with AWS. Right? Chef is completely a different tool, which is more like a generic tool that can be applied on any machine in any platform. Okay, so you need two machine, one chef server and one workstation. That's exactly what I am going to create. So go into your AWS account, create two machines. Okay, so go to EC2. Don't know what this machine is. Let me. Maybe I will go to the Ireland region. Uh, there I will set it up. It doesn't really matter. Actually, Ireland region machines are faster than the machine in Mumbai. The download speed and everything, right? The Ireland region machines are faster. So I'm going to create two machines. One machine I would use as the chef server, other I would use as the workstation. So it can be T2 micro, but there is one problem if you use T2 micro. In a production environment, the chef server cannot run in a T2 micro. Chef need lots of memory, right? Lots of memory is required by chef in order to run. So in general, you would go with this T2 medium or maybe T2 large. You need a better memory and CPU on the chef server machine because the machine is managing a lot of nodes. So you need better configuration in those machines. So in my case, I can go with T2 micro, but still again there's a problem. If I go with T2 micro, even for testing also, T2 micro is not sufficient. When you try to install Chef, it need more than 1 GB RAM. T2 micro machine get only 1 GB RAM, which is not enough to install Chef server. So what I would do is I'm not going with the T2 small or T2 medium. Instead, what I am going to do is I will add some swap space. You know what is swap space? Swap space is nothing but a memory, a backup memory which is inside the hard disk. Let me first create the machines. I'm creating the chef server and the key that I want to use December 20 Ireland. Do I have this key? I have it. Okay, using this key, I am launching machine. I am creating two machine. I created the chef server now. Let me name it as chef server. Then I will create one more machine which will act like the workstation. Again, I want it to be running. I selected Ubuntu T2 Micro. Fine. Launch the machine. I will call it the workstation. Okay, fine. So now I created two machines. One I called it chef server, the other I called it workstation. Fine. So what I am going to do now is, in this chef server machine, I will install the chef server package, and into the workstation I want to install workstation package, which I am going to do. But first thing, when I want to install chef server inside this machine, actually it need more memory. 1 GB is not enough. So what I am going to do is, I don't want to go with a T2 medium instance because it is costly. So what I would do is, I would add some swap space instead of RAM. So I will tell you what is swap space. You have a laptop or you have a EC2 machine that has 1 GB of RAM. This is the RAM. And you have a hard disk or maybe 100 GB hard disk. This is the 100 GB hard disk, and this is the primary memory, or you call it RAM, which is 1 GB in size. Let's say you have some software process. Whenever you try to install chef, a process get initiated which will take care of installing chef, but this process need more than 1 GB of RAM, which it will request to the Linux kernel, but the kernel will not have enough memory because all you have is 1 GB, so you cannot give more than that to this process. So this process would get immediately terminated by the Linux kernel. So you don't want this to happen again. If you want to if you want chef to be get successfully installed, then you want more RAM, but I don't want to pay for it. What I can actually do is, I will take a portion of the hard disk and use that as a RAM. So in the hard disk itself, I would create another 1 GB file, and that file I will use as a RAM, as a backup RAM. In case if this 1 GB get exhausted, it would go with this other 1 GB RAM, which is actually nothing but a portion of your hard disk. So there is no need to pay any extra money for that. But yeah, that's what a swap space is. So what I'm going to do first is, I'm going to add a 1 GB swap space into this chef server machine. So let me log into this machine. So add swap space in Ubuntu. Search in Google. Ubuntu Windows 16.4. So first I need to create a file. This is how I do it. Then enable the swap. First set the permission 7600. Then enable the swap, create the swap partition, and then enable the swap. That's all I need to do. Basically, this would create swap space. Now you run the command free -m. You can see you have 1 GB RAM and 1 GB swap. Basically, swap is nothing but the backup memory. If the RAM get exhausted, it would use the swap space. So total now, virtually I have total 2 GB of memory. That is enough for installing Chef. So I will go ahead and install Chef now. So for installing Chef, what you need to do is first download the Chef from internet. Search in Google, download Chef server. Actually, there are two packages. There is something called Chef Development Kit and Chef Server. So the machine that I want to act like the Chef server, I will install the Chef server package here. And the second EC2 machine, which I want to use as workstation, I will install Chef Development Kit. There's a package called Chef Development Kit, which I will install on the workstation machine, which is used for managing the Chef configuration. Chef server is the actual Chef server that save the configuration of your infrastructure. So there are two packages. Chef server package I want to install here. Chef development kit I want to install on the workstation. So first let me, I have this EC2 machine which I want to act like the Chef server. So I logged into that machine. I am going to install Chef server there. First I need to download Chef server. Search in Google, download Chef server. You would be taken to the Chef server download URL. Go there. Come down, you would see the package for Ubuntu. It is nothing but a Debian package. So Ubuntu 16.4 is what I am using, and click on download button. It would start downloading. Now you need to provide your name and everything. Name, last name, mail ID, all these things you need to provide. Then immediately it would start downloading the Chef server. And of course, it is not to your laptop that you want to download the Chef server. You want to download that into your EC2 machine. So using the wget command, I copy the link address from here. Then using the wget command, I am going to download this package to the Chef server machine. Okay, so the Chef server is downloaded. Now I want to install it. So what you downloaded is a Ubuntu compatible package, Debian package. .deb is nothing but a installable file in Ubuntu. In order to install it, the command is dpkg-i is the command that you need to use in Ubuntu if you want to install a Debian package. So run this command, dpkg-i space the file name. Will basically execute this executable file and install Chef server inside your Linux Ubuntu server. So run this. That would install the Chef server inside your EC2 machine. Okay, that's it. So I install the Chef server. Now I need to configure the Chef server. Actually, the installation is not sufficient. When you do the installation, basically the Chef libraries get installed in your server. Now you need to run a command chef configure. What the command does is, there are lot of other libraries which chef want to use. Always remember the Chef server is the one which manages a number of nodes. So there are many things which Chef server want to do. Chef server want to identify what type of node it is, whether it is running Ubuntu. If it is running Ubuntu, what is the package manager apt-get installed. So like that, there are a lot of information which Chef server need to have. This information need to be downloaded from internet, and some libraries need to be downloaded from internet, and also some URL need to be generated inside the Chef server, which the other nodes and the workstation would use to connect to the Chef server. So there are a lot of other things that need to happen. For that, you run a configure command, and again that is a automated step. You simply run the command configure. Automatically whatever libraries are required by Chef, it will download itself. You don't really need to worry about resolving the dependencies or anything. It will automatically do when you run the Chef server ctl reconfigure command. But one thing that you need to take care is, I told you it is inside the chef server. It would contain all the configurations, whatever configuration that you write inside your workstation. Later you are going to upload all this configuration into your chef server. So how does the workstation connect to the chef server? Through SSH, through HTTP, through HTTPS. It's actually through HTTPS. It's through HTTPS. The workstation or the nodes also, whenever the nodes want to connect to your chef server, it is a HTTPS connection which is coming to the chef server. So inside your server, you need to set up a HTTPS URL which other machine would use to connect to the chef server. This URL generation will also happen when you run this configure command. You are going to run the configure command. At that time, this URL generation will also happen. And in the URL, it would use whatever host name that you have currently set. Every Linux computer will have a host, Linux or Windows. Every computer will have a name. In case of Linux, you can find out the name of your machine by running the command host name. So your chef server name is nothing but this IP-17 something. But the URL which you want to generate for your chef server, you want the public IP of the chef server coming in the URL, because then only the URL will actually become public. I don't know if you are following. Let's think about this. Whenever you run the chef configure command, it would generate a URL. And this URL later be used by the workstation as well as the nodes. Whoever want to reach to the chef server, they will use this URL. It's a HTTPS URL. https:// the host name, whatever host name that you have currently set, that would become the URL by default. Whatever host name that you have currently set, that would become the URL. So https colon then this particular thing slash organization something. But that's not the URL I want the chef server to have. I want the chef server to be accepting the connection on the public IP of the chef server. The chef server has a public IP. I want that to be configured inside the chef server URL. Makes sense, right? Then only people from internet can connect to the chef server. That's what I want. I want my chef server to be public. So as a shortcut, I don't have an option to set the set the correct URL when I configure chef server. It is auto configuration. What it does is whatever value that you have set for your host name, that would become in the URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the host name of my chef server to the public IP of the chef server, so that when the URL generation will happen, that URL will automatically contain the public IP of my chef server. Makes better sense, right? So now you run the command host name. Now the host name has changed to the public IP of the chef server. Great. So you logged into the chef server. You change the host name to match the public IP of the chef server, so that when you run the reconfigure command in chef, automatically this value would be taken and configured as the chef server URL. So run the command chef server ctl reconfigure. This is the command you need to run, which will take some time to complete, and it will download a lot of libraries which chef server want to use later, and also configure this chef server URL. A lot of things would happen. So let it do. It will take some time. I think 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes to complete. We'll wait. Can you explain in the meantime about host name to public ones? Yeah. Actually, I just started this reconfigure command, and during this reconfigure command, a URL would be generated by the chef server. After I run this reconfigure command, a URL would be generated by the chef server and HTTPS URL, HTTPS, then the URL. And this is the URL the other machine would use to connect to the chef server. Assume this is your EC2 machine, and inside the EC2 machine you install chef. Then you want to generate the URL inside the server, which the other machine would use to connect to the chef server through HTTPS. And this URL generation happens when you run this reconfigure command. I just started reconfigure command inside my chef server. So once the URL is generated, the other machine have to use that URL to connect to the machine. And by default, the generated URL would use the host name in the URL. So the URL would become HTTPS, then whatever host name that you have currently set into your chef server machine. Currently it is some computer name, that's it. But that's not what I want in the URL. In the URL, I want the public IP of the chef server so that people from outside can actually connect to the chef server using that URL. I want that public IP to be put inside the URL. A shortcut to this problem is change your host name to the public IP. Then automatically, like I said, when you run the chef reconfigure command, it will take the host name. In this case, if you change the host name to the public IP, that value will be taken and be configured in the URL. Now your URL become public. That is the reason. As a shortcut, I don't have any direct option to specify what URL my chef server would generate. Instead, this is the shortcut I did. I pointed my host name to the public IP of the chef server so that the URL that chef server would generate when you run reconfigure command will automatically contain the public IP of the chef server. Balraj, yes, chef server CTL reconfigure command is same for all operating systems, CentOS, Red Hat, or any operating system. Whatever chef command that we are going to execute, they are common to all operating systems. So let's see what is the status. It is still going on. So always remember, I am configuring the chef server only. I haven't touched the workstation yet. First, I installed chef server, then I configured the chef server. And once the configuration of chef server is finished, next thing which I want to do is I want to create a user and an organization. And this user and organization would be used by my workstation when it want to connect to the chef server. I will come to that later. Okay, I think it's done. Chef server is reconfigured. Perfect. So I'll repeat what all things you did. I created two EC2 machine. First EC2 machine I wanted to use as the chef server. The second EC2 machine I wanted to use as the workstation. Inside the chef server, I logged in here. First, I installed the chef server. Then, before configuring chef server, I set the host name to the public IP of the chef server so that when the reconfigure command generates the URL, it would automatically contain the public IP. Then I run the reconfigure command. Okay, perfect. And now the URL would be generated. The URL would be HTTPS, the public IP of the chef server. The workstation will later use that URL to connect to the chef server. What you do in the workstation, you change the configurations. You want to add a new node, you want to create a new recipe, you want to make some change in the cookbook, you want to add a new cookbook, you want to create a run list, whatever you want to do, you do that in the workstation, make the configuration modification here. Later you will upload these changes into the chef server. So when you do this upload, the workstation need to authenticate himself with the chef server, right? He need to provide some key files, some certificates to the chef server before the chef server can authenticate him. So what you need to do is you need to create a user and one organization also. Inside the chef server, along with the user and organization creation, you would generate a key pair for them, a private key for them, and these user private key and organization private key would be generated inside the chef server. These keys you would copy to the workstation machines, and using this key is how the workstation will connect to the chef server. Then the chef server will know which user the workstation is connecting as and which organization the user belongs to, the workstation belongs to. All this information the chef server would so for that you need to create a user and organization, and this is the command you need to run in the chef server in order to create the user and organization. uh, the command is chef server ctl user create the username alias, put some command, the mail id of the user, then the password of the user, then the private key, the key that you want to generate. So this is the command. If you run on the chef server, it will add a new user to the chef server. Okay, now you type ls, you can see a key file also got generated. You already mentioned that in the command itself you wanted to generate a key, private key, which already got generated. Now I am going to create a organization by running this command. This is the command org create, then the organization name, then you put some command, then you can associate your organization with the user admin. You already created the user admin, you are associating the organization DevOps with the user admin. Then for organization also you are going to generate a key. So run this command. Type ls. Now you can see another key DevOps validator.pem. These both keys later I will copy to my workstation, and then the workstation would use these key pair, these two keys to authenticate with the chef server. So I am done with the chef server configuration. What I would do is we will start with the workstation configuration tomorrow because we don't have time today. It will take some time. So we will start with the workstation tomorrow. So I will just give you a summary on what all things we have done. So we started what are the different definitions in Chef? What is a resource? It is the tiniest rule in Chef is what a resource is. Combining a number of rules, you create recipes. Then it is these recipes that you want to apply on your nodes. So you cannot directly apply the recipes. What you do is you create a run list. You can either create a run list directly for the nodes or you can create run list for the roles. The run list is nothing but a set of recipes put together, and either this set of recipes would be applied directly on a node or on a role to which the node is added to. These are the different definitions in Chef, and the real architecture of Chef would contain you need a Chef server and you need workstation. Whatever change that you want to make into the configuration, even though we haven't started with that yet, you make such changes in the workstation. Later you will upload this change to the chef server. So first I wanted to set up the chef server and the workstation. I need separate machine. So I created one EC2 machine which will act as my chef server. I created another EC2 machine which will act like my workstation. So the first steps on the chef server, I logged into my chef server. Then I installed chef server. Then I set the host name to the right value so that when the URL gets generated in chef server, that would automatically contain the public IP of the chef server. So I set the host name to be equal to the actual public IP of the chef server before I ran the chef reconfigure command. Then I ran reconfigure command, which will download a lot of libraries into your chef server and do a lot of action. And then URL would also get generated, and then you created a user and organization inside the chef server. Later this workstation would use those credentials whenever it want to connect with the chef server and want to upload the configuration into chef server. So whatever you need to do in the workstation, we will discuss that tomorrow, right? Yeah, Somesh, yes, I can share it.
Thanks, Visi.
Yeah. What is the schedule for this week? It's normal, 9 p.m. every day. It's normal. Who is this? I cannot see your name. I don't know. For some of you, I cannot see your names.
This is Ashwin Basil. I mean, like, what are the topics we're gonna discuss this week?
Yeah, I think we will finish chef this week. That is my plan.
Oh, okay. But do we have a class in the weekend?
This weekend we will not have. No.
Okay, Basil. Yeah, okay, Basil.
Okay. And yeah, that's pretty much. Any questions